Hi, this is Doug Manch, and you're listening to Into the Night, a Moon Knight podcast.
Welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. This is a big one. This is episode 149. Doesn't sound like a big number or a significant number, but it is. And we've got a bumper episode for you tonight. We are reviewing a new comic book off the back of the bonus episode, which we've done for Avengers 33. It's The Age of Khonshu. And this will be more of our formal review. And also we'll have our next chapter for The Hunt for Khonshu's Golden Scepter, Part 11. You are listening to your High Priest of Khonshu Rey, and I am joined by a very special guest, good friend of the show, and awesome Loony, Tommy Cawel. Tommy, welcome. Tommy the man on the streets.
Hey, Ray. It's good to be back.
Cool. Excellent. Yeah, you probably don't know how to take that kind of title. It is yours. You are the man on the streets. We will see later on, we'll hear later on, your travails in the serial adventure where you do, I guess, investigate. But it's a lot of fun. Look, just before we go on, again, I just want to give a big shout out to our fantastic patroonies. Thank you so much for joining. Dustin Wayne, Justin Joey, Jordan, Josh, James, and Anthony. And a big welcome to our new and latest patroonie, Russell Moran. He's an RTK scribe from Paint Monk's Library. A big hello, Russell. He gave some feedback in our bonus episode. Thank you for becoming a patroonie. It's very, very much appreciated. You're a champ. Also, a couple of sponsors, as mentioned, Hello Headphones, empowering gamers to play at their best. Fantastic sponsor. And our new sponsor, Dreamland Comics from Tommy Schaumburg. Is that how you pronounce it? Illinois? Schaumburg? I'm not sure if you know of the area.
I know nothing about Schaumburg, Illinois, but I bet that's how you say it.
Okay, cool. Schaumburg, Illinois. Dreamland Comics, the superhero superstore. So a big shout out to them. Great sponsors of the show. Well, Tommy, man, it's great to have you back. It seems like ages since we've spoken together. A bit here and there online, of course. And of course, you've been a very busy fellow as well. But what I guess I wanted to ask as well, I always kind of kick it off as to reading anything in particular. How are you going on the reading front? You may be reading a lot less these days, yeah?
Yeah, so as a teacher these last couple of weeks, I'm reading mostly student work, and I'm not exactly sure how it's been in Australia, but it's been nothing but chaos in the United States over the last couple of months. Our schools ended the night of March 12th. And so I've been away from my classroom and my students for about 2 months now. And so right now I'm reading predominantly children's books and a novel to my children. And I'm reading student work. So I've been very, very out of touch when it comes to comics, but I have been making time for a few things. I've been rereading Dune.
Okay.
I got excited with anticipating the new movie coming out, and I read the first 2 books in the Dune series when I was in high school, so I picked up some extra copies of those, and going back and taking a look at some favorite comics through the Fantasy Comic Book League a few months ago. Mm-hmm. I won, which was fun, and so they sent me a trade paperback of the complete Tom King Vision series.
Oh, nice one.
And so that I've been kind of picking through, and my buddy Jason, who's actually, I'm going to step from the mic for a second, who plays with us in our Fantasy Comic Book League, found a hard copy of Men's Eternals at a library, Friends of the Library sale. And so he's been letting me borrow this for about 5 months. So, but otherwise, I still have some pulls at Tardy's at my comic book shop. I'm still picking up the Ta-Nehisi Coates Black Panther run. Mm-hmm. DC's Last God. And given we're coming back, this was our first week back for all of us with New Comic Book Day. And so getting back into the shop the other day on Wednesday and to seeing my friends there was really awesome. And even though I haven't been actually reading a lot of the polls that I have and the books that I've been picking up, I think that what I love about comic culture is exactly what I experienced 2 years ago when when ITK was getting started, 10 episodes in, I think is when I found you or something like that. And it's the community. Yeah. And so even though I may not have time with 3 kids now and school ending and time to read everything that I want to, what I loved most about this last Wednesday was getting back into the store and seeing Gavin and Deanna and Abby, the owners of the shop, and talking to them and just kind of shooting the breeze and the same thing here. And so I just want to celebrate ITK for that as well, because it's finding connections and we'll give some shout outs later in the show for a couple Loonies that have become very special to me. It's really exciting. So even though the world is trying to figure itself out right now, it's that comic culture is something that's very special. So.
Yeah, I mean, because things have the pressure's kind of off a little here as well, like with regards to, and we're not going to spend too much about the pandemic and stuff, but interested to know about your comic book store. What are the little changes that you see now? Like, do you see like X's on the floor for, the, was it the 6 foot distance, a 1.5 meter distance? Do you see, is it a limited amount of customers coming in, hand sanitizers everywhere? How is it kind of different from before?
Yeah, and so Tardy's is not necessarily typical of other stores in the United States, because we're working with federal regulations, state regulations, and Michigan is quite different than many other states. And then we're dealing with local county regulations as well. And so my comic book shop, is many of our Loonies shops are, it's kind of like a shotgun store in a little tiny strip mall.
Okay.
And so it's really tight quarters at times. And so we don't have X's on the floors and 6 foot ropes and things like that you might see in a restaurant when you're picking up carry out or takeaway. But because of regulations that have been issued by our state government, and really just over the last week, the reopening does dictate that they can only have so many patrons inside at a time. Yeah. And that is, less the workers. And so I think it's 10 in a shop of X size. Mm-hmm. And since there's 3 workers at Tardy's every day with Gavin and Deanna and Abby, I think they can only have 7 patrons inside at a time. But even then, it is close quarters. Yeah. We do have to wear masks wherever we go.
Oh, okay. Yep.
No problem. I mean, at the end of the day, we're protecting each other.
Yeah.
And so it was kind of weird, because I've been to the grocery store kind of on and off. My wife and I had switched on who goes to the grocery store. But other than that, we've really been self-sequestered for about 2 months. And it was vexing and it was jarring at first. And it was difficult at times. And trying to co-parent and work in the same house and trying to split professional time. And parent and try to teach your kids and try to still have fun and try to find time for yourself it's impossible. Yeah. And so it was just that breath of, sorry for the irony, but that breath of fresh air of getting out, breathing through my mask. Yeah. And there were only two patrons in the store at the time when I went, but it was really great.
Okay. So. No, that's fantastic. I mean, yeah, it is a different time. It's it's a weird thing, but it must be such a relief. I mean, this was the talk of a lot of the online town for comic book collectors about just comics being available again, and not only in digital form, but you can actually pick them up again. And so Avengers 33 is one of them coming out from Marvel, at least. I know DC have a different agenda, but yeah, so they've released it. So that was one of the first kind of waves of available comics. I do believe Marvel's gone, like I get like promo emails from them as well, and they've got like digital first again, so I think they're going back to digital for a while. And which the idea is that later on you can get the hard copy later on in the year. But it's interesting that this release May 27 was when the new comic book day. That Marvel released hard copies, physical copies of it. But it's going to be a trickle. It's going to be a slow return to it. But I think everyone's kind of sighing a what is it? I've lost the saying. Sighing a sigh of relief. so that's cool. Great. So I've just sorry there, Tommy. I always say as well. I was looking down, typing it. So I've got June, Vision, Eternals, Black Panther, and I've got Last God as yours. I'll put them in the show notes for any loonies keen on, trying something different from our recommendations from our guests. So I mean, as for me, look, I'm still kind of working through my epic collection. So nothing much has changed. Amazing Spider-Man, Cosmic Adventures. Well, I will say though, I'm going through the Grey Hulk era. So I might as well give a shout out to Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks. They're doing a retrospective on Joe Fixit, so I'm reading along with them from about 345 of the Incredible Hulk series, Peter David onwards, with Joe Fixit in Vegas. That's a lot of fun. Also Quasar, again a big shout out to the Quantum Zone Quasar podcast. I've been following them. We're up to Quasar 43, very interesting through a 60 issue run. And Scarlet Spider, Ben Reilly. So I'm looking at the Clone Saga. Been reading a lot of the Clone Saga, which is a lot of fun. I mean, I know people like diss it and stuff, but I kind of, it's not like a masterpiece or highbrow kind of writing, but it's just a bit of fun. So, I
remember when was it last summer or now 2 summers ago? But when Damnation came out, we had all the speculation about Ben Reilly and Scarlet Spider, and is that gonna? Should we go back and look into those books and try to find some Easter eggs? And
Oh, well, that's kind of where I first kind of clicked, because Peter David was writing, and I was quite impressed with the Scarlet Spider. Took a liking to him, so I thought I'd better jump on this kind of journey of Ben Reilly in the Capes and Lunatics Sidekicks Ultimate Spider Cast. So I'm on there at the end of each month, and a little plug, with Phil, Drop King Phil, and Matt Kona, great guys there. Anyway, Tommy, not only comics as well. You were talking about Dungeons and Dragons earlier.
Yeah, so I posted on our Facebook group maybe a month or two ago, but I've been trying to introduce my 5-year-old to Dungeons and Dragons, albeit a kind of rudimentary version. But being stuck inside and at home for 2 months, you kind of rack your brain. What can I do to maintain some semblance of consciousness, I guess, or trying to have some fun? And so I was thinking about it, and so I've been kind of workshopping a Dungeons and Dragons character that I shared on the group, but I hadn't played since I was in middle school, so it's been almost 20 years since I played. And finding oneself stuck inside your home and you can't see your friends, I found another group on Facebook of Michigan D&D players, and Ray, you and I were just talking earlier today about Discord and what a great service that is. Where really ITK had its roots in sharing audio, and so I found a group that was playing just audio only, audio and text only on Discord, and they brought me in, and so I'm actually playing in 2 different campaigns, just a couple hours a week at night. But in one of them, it's the same DM. And so he has basically let me play Moon Knight. And so I'm playing this warlock character, level maybe 13 now. But I'm playing him as Mark Spector Moon Knight. The DID and the multiple personalities haven't come into the mix, but I have this patron god, Khonshu, and he's given me all these powers, and I am his avatar of vengeance in this world.
Yeah.
So that's been a ton of fun. And then in a second campaign, I'm playing a very different character, more of a pacifist, named Rubo. And he's I know this sounds super nerdy, but whatever. Welcome to ITK. But he's a Loxodon, which is like an elephant man.
Okay.
And he's a druid, but he's like a follower of the moon. And so all of his powers kind of revolve around the moon and lights and phases. And I'm hoping the DM's going to kind of play into it, because these two campaigns are taking place at the same time in the world that it's set in. That Rubo is going to kind of come to find out that the moon is Khonshu, and then he and my other character are going to find a way to like have some connection. And it's been so much fun to just role play, because I'm an actor in high school and college and in my young adult life over the last 10 years. And I love acting, and I love working on the stage and on film, and the voice acting for the serial here has been such a fun little escape whenever I'm on. And so it's really a lot of fun for me, even just a couple hours a week, to be able to play a version of my favorite comic book character. And so it's been such a great way to celebrate one of my passions and one of my interests, but in a very different way. So I'd love to have conversations with other Loonies, especially other D&D players, or if you have any questions. I'm by no means an experienced D&D player. Like I said, I played when I was in middle school, and I've maybe put in 20 hours over the course of the last couple of months to kind of get back into it. But that's something that I'd love to talk about.
Awesome. I mean, that other character that you mentioned, so is that your creation, or is that based on a mythology or something, or?
Well, both characters, outside of the very heavy Moon Knight references, are my creation, but they're created through the rules of the game.
Okay.
So my the Warlock character is just a human character, and if you pick up the D&D books or get on D&D Beyond or Roll20, they kind of show you how to make a character.
Yeah.
And then as you level up, you have to follow certain paths, and you get choices and things like that. But the other character, the elephant creature, the Loxodon, is it's something that was just created by Wizards of the Coast, which is the company that now owns D&D and Magic the Gathering. I know that Dave's former partner on Signal of Doom, he was super into Magic the Gathering too. He's another teacher. And I don't know, Rick might like play Magic too, but I played Magic when I was younger, and so it's kind of fun to, now that I have a little bit more time, to kind of explore some fun activities. Not being in school all the time, it's been great.
Okay, awesome. I mean, and by all means, we'll get to it with our SPECTOR-CALL, which will be just a little segment after this, just for contact details and stuff for Tommy. But it'll be interesting. Any Loonies, I'm sure there are a lot of Loonies out there that are into Dungeons and Dragons. Unfortunately, I know very little about it other than what I've learnt from Stranger Things, and IT Crowd. For anyone that knows that British comedy show. So it sounds interesting, and of course the celebrities like Vin Diesel and Deborah Ann Wall. I know she did this. She created this thing, Rarities and Relics, I think. She created her own Dungeons and Dragons kind of community. It fascinates me how it's this role playing idea. But no, very interesting indeed. Now, before we get into the spectacle, well, actually, why not? So Tommy, if Loonies do want to contact you, and I'll put this in the show notes, where can they contact you? How can they contact you for anything D&D?
Probably the best way is just on Facebook. Mm-hmm. So Ray has graciously allowed me to be one of the group's administrators to, guard the gates, to guard the Bifrost. So you can find me there. I'm also on Twitter. I forget what my Twitter
at Thomas Cavell.
Yeah, I think it's just at Thomas Cavell.
Yeah.
And so I'll pop up as somebody that likes ITK tweets and things like that. But probably Facebook is probably the best place. And Loonies are probably familiar with kind of popping in and liking their comments and giving shout outs, because I love seeing everybody comment on Facebook.
Oh, it's fun, isn't it?
And sharing your interest. And I love seeing those first comments of new Loonies where it's like, hey, I don't know if it's okay to post this here, but I wanted to share this. And usually you'll see a comment from me that just says, absolutely, keep it going. You know, that's what we're here for. We want to support each other and celebrate each other.
Right. I love it. I love saying it. I mean, of course, I say within reason, but every time someone's requested something, it's like, oh, for sure, this is what this thing is for. You know, it's great. Like whether you're a cosplayer or you want to show off your collection, I love seeing that sort of stuff, and really encourage that to be shared around. Okay. Well, okay. So, well, in the show notes, you can contact Tommy through the Facebook group, and I think that's in there anyway. All right. Well, Tommy, just the other thing, we got something from Chad. He requested, it's been a long while since we've done it. We might as well do it now. I'm going to lead off with what Chad's said. The power of Chad, that is, and its predictions for Moon Knight over the next 12 months, because we've seen a lot of activity, especially in the group now. I mean, you're mentioning, Tommy, a lot of new Loonies coming in, which I think is fantastic. It's great. There seems to, especially with this Avengers 33 issue, it seems to have garnered a lot of interest. And of course, the TV show coming up. What would you say over the next 12 months? Actually, I'll lead this off with Chad, because he's suggested it. The next 12 months, I'll give you some time to think. What do we see in the lights of Moon Knight in the media? What do you think will occur? And I'll just lead off with what Chad says. He goes, my prediction for the next 12 months is that Khonshu is going to let the Avengers in on whatever cosmic battle royale is going down. They'll willingly take a knee or provide backup, and Loki will be proven right from his run as Sorcerer Supreme. You and I know from Fantasy Comic League that Chad is a big Loki fan. Humanity wasn't prepared for this threat, and without help, that'd be a speed bump at best for whatever beastie shows up. Also, he reckons Jake Lockley as the Hell Cabbie, using Robbie's Hell Charger a bit more later in Avengers 33. And he said, aside from comics, casting for the show is going to be surprising. He reckons that will be up in the next 12 months. I think we may have a standalone iOS game and 2 Stinger appearances. So a lot there that will occur. Over 12 months is a long time. What do you reckon, Tommy? Will we see a lot?
Chad, my man. I love you. we have a lot of shared interests. I think a lot of that's pretty ambitious. And I think my predictions, I think, are a bit more tempered, just in that, especially with the shutdowns that we've seen throughout the world. And while some nations have opened up and the United States is getting into new phases, I really don't think that we're going to have what we want to have very soon. Knowing that the trade paperback of the Avengers run, but the Age of Khonshu, I think it's officially going to be 7 issues. It's collecting 31 through 37. I think we're going to see monthly CBR.com
of course,
articles, and we got this covered articles and the clickbait sites. We might see some news, I think, about casting within the next, I'd say maybe even 6 months for the show. And I would hope definitely within the next year. But I think that even the Moon Knight show isn't expected to drop on Disney Plus until 2022. And while we had the original schedule that I think they were going to start filming and getting into active production in maybe October, November of this year, I think that's most definitely going to get pushed back again. So as it goes, as a Moon Knight fan, as we all are, as diehard Moon Knight fans, you got to sit and you got to wait, and it's painful. This is something to celebrate, that he is not who from DC. I'm not going to give up that reference right now. But at the same time, like Serpent War, and we may get into this later, but Serpent War, I know that we all had our criticisms for it, and it was kind of a weird mix with Conan and the other 2 characters that Marvel is kind of invested in, and maybe will continue to now that they're back. But that was really a pleasant surprise for me. I had a lot of fun with Damnation,
Damnation.
and
Oh yeah.
yeah. Well, what I mean is that that was another miniseries that
yeah.
we had to wait months and months and months to see Moon Knight in anything, even just a reference.
Yeah.
And then we got Serpent War, and then Serpent War, and even the Marvel Spotlight from last summer. Was it number 3, 4? Part of the fun of being a fan of Moon Knight is that that he is a character that remains within the annals of Marvel history, even to his small degree, and Marvel is going to continue to use him. And so it's the carrot at the end of the stick for me. Yeah. That's part. I kind of take pleasure in the pain of being a Moon Knight fan. Of that, you're always looking for news. You're always looking for news, and even though you're disappointed 99% of the time, that one time when you hear that, holy smokes, there's a limited series with Moon Knight coming out, or there's 7 issues in this Avengers arc where Moon Knight's coming out, and I get to have those great conversations with my friends at my store or with the Loonies online, and it's like that's part of the fun. So Chad, I can only hope that all of those things come true. But I think that we're going to see Moon Knight finish out this series in Avengers. What that'll probably be, I think, issue 37. And maybe next summer they'll announce another limited run, or maybe they'll announce a new series. But I gotta temper myself in my excitement. Yeah,
look, I think a series is on the way, but it will be a bit later as well, because I think, as you say, they push back the TV show. They want it to coincide it with the show, so you don't want to release it too early, unless, of course, they're thinking, touch wood, if ever, they would do like a 30-plus run, that would last a distance to lead into the TV show. Generally, you're looking at, 6, 7, maybe 12 issues for a run. So they wouldn't be releasing that until maybe the latter half of the 12-month period that say we're looking at predicting anything to happen. I'm a little bit more cautiously optimistic on the toy figures. I mean, we've seen the release of one of the latest Marvel Legends Moon Knight, the all white one, which is pretty cool.
Yeah, and I've got my previous Legends one figure right here.
Yeah,
but cool. That all white one it's a Walgreens exclusive. I don't know how they scored that deal, but I got my pre-order in. I think they're sold out now. Awesome. I think they're done, but you can only get one at a time. But I got my pre-order in, so
that's awesome. Well, I mean, so that's come out a bit early. I do think they will, again, in the lead up to the show. So we're talking about later on. It's not going to come soon, but we might get another iteration. Still hanging out for that Mr. Knight. Maybe some villains, like maybe a Bushman or something. Whoever might be featuring in the TV show. So I still think that will come out, and to the same regards with the Funko Pops as well. I think there'll be a bit more of a release depending on what the show will offer. The Funko Pops will follow suit, or as is more often the case with toy figures, they kind of preempt the TV show and spoil some spoilers. So we might even know who the villains are before the show airs because of the toy releases. But I think that what
I'd love to see though is Legos. I want because you can pop around, and sometimes on eBay or even on Craigslist, I saw something claimed before, but I think it was fake. But of custom Moon Knight Lego figures where somebody created their own, but when you see Captain America, my boys have a million Spider-Man Legos. But what I want to see, the validation point is when Lego releases a Moon Knight action or Lego set. That would just be awesome.
Yeah, and absolutely. Look, the closest thing I've got to the Legos thing, the Mini Mates. There's the Moon Knight Mini Mates that's come out. That's a nice little figure with Punisher and such. But anyway, just to wrap up these predictions, it's not really a prediction because I think it's still happening towards the last quarter of this year. We'll be looking at an omnibus for Moon Knight, which has been confirmed as, I think it's largely the Mensch run, maybe all of it. I think that's about 38 issues plus maybe even the Fist of Khonshu. I'm not too sure. So that has been confirmed. That will be in the last quarter. It may have been pushed back now because of the pandemic. So we will see a lot more publications. I'm saying at least a mini, like, you know, not a title series. We'll get at least another mini of Moon Knight somewhere. Yeah. So, righty. Speaking of which, there, Tommy, you flashed your Marvel Legends figure there. I just want to go to our SPECTOR-CALL, our shoutouts. So, you had a couple of shoutouts. You scored big. You had a nice swag of stuff from all the way from Canada, right?
Yeah. So it's been a long time since I've I guess been live on the show, and so, you know, as I hope for all our Loonies, our collections grow as time goes on. But got in touch with the Real Comic Knight, so moonnight.life on Instagram, Sandy. I think he's from about Toronto in Canada. And he had posted that, you know, he's starting to sell a bunch of stuff, and I found some really great pieces from him. But this guy, I got to give a huge shout out to Sandy. Mm-hmm. This guy's top notch. I mean, he was willing to talk live with me over Instagram. He's sent videos going through his collection. He did personal searches for me, looking for back issues. And before, I would love to show some of these off on video just real quick. I'll try not to take up the podcast time. But I also want to give a shout out to Paint Monk's Library because for sharing just a really, really great idea to how to store some of your favorite comics. Because I have several short boxes in my basement where I keep a lot of my old issues. Mm-hmm. And I don't get to enjoy them because they're just stuck in the basement, and I don't have time to do this, that, and the other to begin with. So when would I have time to actually go into the basement, dig into my boxes, and actually look at my old comics? And so Paint Monk's Library shared on the Facebook page, and you can actually look it up. Maybe we can kind of pin that post.
Yeah, we will, definitely.
But to check out these BCW store folios, they have just a magnet clip inside. Mm-hmm. But he recommended getting the faux leather bound version. So it kind of looks like a book. Yeah. And then it stores several boarded and bagged comics in there.
Nice. How many do you reckon it can fit in there?
I think it can store 20 to 25
that's all right.
floppies.
That's all right.
And then maybe, I think, about 10 to 12 boarded and bagged.
Okay.
But he also used a graphic design program to create binding labels. And it has the original Moon Knight insignia.
I've seen them.
And then he has the numbers down here, and he shared all of them.
Yeah,
and so I've basically been able to recreate his library with all my cherished old floppies.
That's fantastic.
And so I'm really excited. That's going to be a little bit of a summer project for me to get that printed and actually, check the quality of my issues and get them in here. But that's going to be so fun for me to showcase my favorite books on my bookshelf. I'd show everybody, Ray has that nice setup behind him. I just have a wall, but that's because all of my books and everything are over here by my piano. And so I'm really excited about that. But Sandy, though, with the Comic Night, just really was willing to part with a lot of great issues at such a low price. And I'd love to show you on the dot cam, but we'll save time. But just a lot of great issues. We'll post this in the show notes.
Yeah, I read that one just recently because that was being reviewed. He goes up against this awful Asian supervillain. It was a lot of fun. Let's just say
the White Dragon.
Yeah.
And a few issues that I actually hadn't found anywhere, at least in any reasonable condition, but the Ultimate Spider-Man. So I'm party with 80 and 107, which just have some really cool covers from the early 2000s. And a lot of these are issues I already had. The Vengeance with Wolverine, War Machine, and Moon Knight. Wolverine on the cover. Love that.
Yeah.
And then I think I have 4 copies of this, but I had to have another one. And so if anybody's interested, maybe we can talk about spreading the love.
Yeah, for sure.
Hawkeye, Moon Knight, some
that was
Spider-Man.
That was Stephen Grant and in the submarine, right? With the one with Iron Man.
Yeah,
we did that review. That was a good one.
But these are two of my favorites. The 1 of 50 variant for issue 200.
Nice. Yeah.
I mean, that's a piece that I just want to put in the frame and put that on my wall. But this is what I'm most excited about because I haven't been able to find it. But it's the X Universe cover with the
nice.
like kind of the new Egypt type that Avengers cartoon almost played off of.
Yep. So so any Loonies, Loonies you can't see the visuals, and any Loonies would be aware of this cover. It's a really cool cover. It's almost like a mummified Moon Knight with some Uzis or some sort of submachine gun.
Yeah, and that's at least in my reading, was pretty much the precursor or the predecessor to the bone armor or our visions of Moon Knight in the Lemire run, where we see him kind of wrapped in this ancient or almost mummified shell. And I love that, where we first see Mr. Knight. What was it, the Ellis?
The Secret Avengers, wasn't it?
In Secret Avengers, where it's just it's only for a page or two, and then some other creator team of creators then take that and then they turn that into one of our favorite iterations of Moon Knight. So I'm really excited to add these to my collection, and so I really wanted to give a shout out because Sandy at Comic Night, he was awesome, and he is awesome, and he's got a lot of really great stuff on Instagram, and so I recommend all Loonies check him out. Yeah. He's such a gentleman, and he threw in two. I paid him for all of these, and he threw in two Walgreens. So cool. What are these Funko
Pops? Yeah, the classic Moon Knight.
The exclusive, yeah.
That's so fantastic.
So, I mean, really cool.
Yeah, I mean, so a big shout out, a big thank you. I'll put it in the show notes as well, Tommy, for Sandy. He's one of the OG Loonies as well. I've had some great chats with him. I haven't heard from him recently, but I'm glad to see that he's still kicking it and doing everything Moon Knight. So yeah, big hello to Sandy if you're listening. And also as well, it's fortunate that you mentioned Paint Monk Libraries. Look, we're not only a comic review podcast, we're a DIY. So, a big shout out to Wally Monk there. Not only are we doing some Moon Knight written article reviews for Paint Monk Libraries, but he is helping out Loonies like Tommy. Fantastic ideas. Go check it out. And if we can, we might put some sort of relevant information to those sorts of binders, and links to Wally has shared those spine kind of prints of the titles. Really good indeed. Incidentally as well, I was fortunate enough, Wally asked me to write an editorial on that site as well, so I'll share that later on. It's just a bit of a spiel about the podcast and what we do. I'm very proud of what we do on the show, and so that will be up soon, and hopefully we can share that around. Find more Looney members as well. Finally, before we get into just very sparse news, Tommy, you wanted to give one little shout out to a little mate of both of ours.
Yeah, Looney Tunes. But again, just for any listeners, the ITK community, I think, is really, really special. And Ray, I know that you put your soul into the podcast, and we all truly appreciate that. But you've also created a community where fans can come together in a safe space and really share our passions, and it goes beyond just Moon Knight, I think. And so Looney Tunes, Noel Tate, he's donated to Leader, his band's music, to the show and has helped the show in so many ways. But ITK got me connected with Noel, and I've been able to have some recorded chats, and we even did a roundtable robin together, but we chatted online, and Noel is a really, really cool cat. But he's also an artist, and he was willing to create a piece for my family, and I'm not going to show that here, but it's just awesome. And so I love how the ITK community brings us all together, and we can share with each other. It's really great. So Noel, thank you again for what you did for our family, and that'll be a piece that's passed down. So I love it.
Yeah, no, a big shout out to Looney Tunes. He's an awesome fella. And again, in the show notes, we'll have something. If you want to get in contact, if you want to have something done by Noel, drawn, it's really cool. And you know, he's not half bad with the guitar as well, Tommy. I say that Noel provides all the music with his bandolita for the show. So big props to Noel. Right, well, Tommy, we are going to get there, Loonies. We are getting there towards the big Avengers 33 review that Tommy and I will, throw ourselves at. But again, look, just quickly, some white noise, some news. Tommy, you alluded to it earlier. December 2020, Avengers Volume 7 trade paperback, which will cover issues 31 to 37, which will encapsulate all of AGE of KHONSHU. That will be out. Look, there's nothing much else. I only put this other article in here, Tommy. It was titled, Who is Khonshu, the God of Moon Knight? Only because there's a whole swathe of articles about reviewing Avengers 33, spoilers, blah, blah, blah. This one, I just wanted to make mention that that reference to the devil, Tommy. There's a lot of conjecture as to who it is. We'll get into it. But they seem to be quite adamant that it's Mephisto. So, it kind of makes it... Aaron has been using Mephisto in the Avengers run, so there's a lot of, credence to that. But
and that's really back to Damnation, too.
Yes, it is.
Ever since Damnation, where he was dethroned and ejected from hell. And
imprisoned in Vegas as well. So
I would... Part of me wants to hate if this does turn out to just be Mephisto that Khonshu's warned against, unless there's some lore that might be explored of how Mephisto might be just an entity of some greater being, I think that would be fun. But again, I'm sure we'll get into that.
Yeah, we will definitely get into that discussion for our review. So, Loonies, we're almost there. As promised, though, the top of the show, Tommy, I hope you're ready there with the button. We have the next end of the month. It's coming a little late. End of the month, part 2, The Hunt for Khonshu's Golden Scepter. It is our ongoing serial. For Loonies that don't know, we're up to part 11. It's just it's for the Loonies, made by the Loonies. So Tommy's in it. There are a few more extra characters, new characters cropping up. It's just a lot of fun to do. It's the Adventures of the Loonies, and we are looking for Khonshu's Golden Scepter to stop the arrival of Set into the world, tangentially connected to Moon Knight and his universe, to prevent any kind of legal ramifications and licensing infringements. So, Tommy, you haven't heard this, right? Haven't heard it yet, so I guess we can't discuss it. So, Tommy, maybe let's play it, and we'll after that we'll go to a break, and we'll be right back to start our review. So enjoy the next chapter for our serial adventure.
A street contact, Gabe, came away with the goods, and after some digging around, he was able to chance upon the unlisted home address for Bernie Colworth. Colworth was the unlucky father and outspoken advocate for exposing his daughter as the victim of the clandestine cult called the Cool Nun. I approached his door with too many questions on my mind. I was scattered and agitated. Not good. Was Bernie just another victim to the recent madness gripping the city? Gabe spoke of irrational behavior from rational residents. News sprouted stories of neighbors shooting each other and office workers jumping out of buildings. Could Bernie be party to this insanity? Or were his fears very real and in need of someone to just believe? I was about to find out.
Who is it?
Hi, Mr. Colworth. My name is Tommy. I'm here about your daughter. May I come in?
How did you find me? Are you with the police? Or the press? Well, I gotta be honest. I'm neither. I'm investigating all this, and I'm here to learn more about your daughter. And, if you have it, the cult of the Cool Nun. I believe they have something to do with what's happening with the city.
Wait. You're the first one I've talked to that seems to be on my wavelength. Come in. Come in.
Bernie's house was a hoarder's dream, but it hadn't been that way long. Newspapers and scrapbooks jostled with pizza boxes and banana peels, and the sickening mixture of sweat and panic lingered in the stuffy air like a poor end-of-shift decision. I'd have gagged if it weren't for the urgency. Bernie's info was the next step.
Would you like a drink? Perhaps some water?
Yes. That would be nice. Thank you. I gave his sitting room a once-over while he stepped away, only turning toward a photo of the man and his daughter on the wall as he returned with a glass. Can I ask if you found anything new on the Cool Nun? You say they're a cult, but everyone else, the media, played that down and have pretty much discredited your claims.
Oh, yes. The media are trying to hide something. But it's true. The Cool Nun are a cult, and they brainwashed my little girl. My daughter Joyce used to be a very normal girl. Did quite well at school and excelled at sports. Then she fell in with a bad crowd. Started skipping school, coming home late.
With all due respect, sir, she is a teenager, right? It's not that uncommon for teenagers to act out.
Oh, no. This isn't the usual teenage angst or rebelling against one's own parents. I'd be sitting here at home, waiting up for her, and Joyce would walk in the door with blood covered on her clothes. She'd have a few bruises and scratches here and there, but she'd always just claim they came from her stints at the dojo. I'd find things like knives and shurikens in her bag, all sorts of weaponry. That was then, before she went missing. And now it's been... How's the water? Good?
Yeah. Fine, thank you. Knives, you said? What sort of other things? Did you see, a scepter?
A scepter? No, I don't think so. But there was definitely a blade, or a scythe, or throwing knives, that sort of thing. I really just want her back home. But at the same time, I'm a little scared of her now.
Do you have a picture of her, maybe? I have contacts on the street. I could ask if anyone's seen her.
Sure. Here. This is a picture of Joyce and I when we were over Canada visiting her mother. One moment. I'll just grab a refill.
As Bernie shuffled into the kitchen to grab his fifth glass of water, I glanced upon that picture of Joyce, and it hit me like a freight train. In the picture there stood a far healthier Bernie, a far cry from the mess of a man now pottering loosely in the kitchen. Beside him, his daughter Joyce, young, pretty, and exuding a confidence that only comes with claiming victory on the sports field or in the classroom. But none of this made my stomach churn or put a lump in my throat. What struck me most in that frame was the piece of jewelry hanging from Joyce's neck. A few months ago, I'd have just cast it aside as some department store trinket, or secondhand buy from a thrift store. Not today. I had been catching up on my homework and had been studying all I could on set. The Agents of Chaos, and the ancient relics like Khonshu's scepter. What I was certain of, as Bernie shuffled back with a full glass in hand, was that the jewelry hanging from Joyce's neck was none other than Thoth's Ankh. It was the relic which claimed just as much importance as Khonshu's golden scepter, and which both the Loonies and the Agents of Set were pursuing all over the globe. Joyce was in the middle of a war, and if the cool nun had Joyce in its sights, well, let's just say you wouldn't need the Eye of Horus to know why.
Professor, are you getting this? I'm in pursuit of our target. It's foxed on down into the subterranean tunnels.
Copy.
Oh, good, buddy. You're coming through a bit patchy, but I hear you well enough. Told you should have let me whip up some decent comm units myself.
Yeah, maybe next time, alright?
We don't have time to stock the van with enough gizmos for you to play with. I'm hoping at least your ecto harness works. I mean, did you catch a glance at that thing as it shot past us? I've not seen anything like it, and we've run into our fair share of boogeymen.
I know what you mean. This city has always had its fair share of capes and lunatics, but of late it's turned into a madhouse. Got to figure out what's happening to everyone.
First, we focus on the low-hanging fruit. If there's anything I've learned behind the madness, there are usually demons.
We tag some of these guys, we're well on our way.
Well, fear not, old chum. That ecto harness should prove to be pretty infallible. Have any of my inventions ever failed us yet?
Shh, I think it's on to us.
What? What's going on down there? What? Who said that? Phil, was that you?
Charlie, I said comms out. I've lost visual on our target. Need you to see if you can track it on UV. I could be in trouble.
Phil? You there, Phil? Phil!
Pipe down, Professor. You don't have to shout.
Damn. So it got you, did it?
Yeah, but I managed to open the harness and nab him just before I croaked. The ecto harness should still be down there with our little friend inside.
You know, Philip, it still unsettles me every time you reset yourself. I can't recall how many times I've seen you bite the dust.
Only to reanimate somewhere else? Well, I guess that's why they call me the Quantum Man. Lucky I made a note to flag my last checkpoint in this van. Otherwise, I'd have reincarnated over in Peru.
Looks like we have another anomaly. Over there, near the Quickie Mart.
I know that guy. Looney Tunes Tate, hero of the Brownstone murders.
Not him. More like the company he is keeping. Readings are off the charts for that fellow. His energy readings are phenomenal.
Alright, anything out of the ordinary has got to lead us closer to figuring out what's going on in this city. I'll go grab the ecto harness quickly from where I left it underground. You start the engine. I say we follow them and go get us some answers.
Hey there! Do you like comic books? Do you like superhero TV and movies? Well, come on over and check out the Capes of Lunatics podcast. We have such shows as Capes of Lunatics and Super Connectivity, where we cover everything new and current and popular in the world of superheroes. And we also have episode-by-episode reviews of the Marvel Netflix shows and a monthly discussion of everything current on the DC Comics character Nightwing. and a few other surprises all the time. So come join us for the Capes and Lunatics podcast.
Hey everyone, this is Brian, the host of Inner Demons, the Ghost Rider podcast. And since 2017, Inner Demons has been the best place on the web for news, reviews, and regular discussion with our listeners about Marvel's Spirit of Vengeance, Ghost Rider. You can find us on Stitcher, Google Podcasts, Apple Podcasts, and many other podcast catchers, as well as on Twitter at InnerDemonsGR. Remember, listening to your Inner Demons is not always a bad thing. Ride on.
Yes, welcome back, Loony listeners. You are listening to Into the Night, the Moon Knight podcast. Episode 149. I am High Priest of Khonshu Rey. I am with Tommy, the man on the streets, Kawel Tommy. And coming around from the other side of the break, we just heard the latest addition to the Hunt for Khonshu's Golden Scepter. That was a long one. I was telling the Patroonies during the break, Tommy, that clocks in at about 11 minutes, 15 seconds. That's the longest episode so far. So we saw Tommy's character, Tommy, investigate, meet up with Bernie Colworth, and a big shout out to the new characters. So big thanks to Rob Southgate for Bernie, Phil, the Drop King Phil, as the corner man, and Charlie Esser as the professor, of course, as well. That's a lot of fun to do. We'll see what happens next. We are here, though, for the Avengers 33 review, and available on floppy and digital. This is technically Avengers Volume 8, Issue 33, The Age of Khonshu, Part 1, Moon Knight versus the Avengers. It was published May 27th, 2020. We have writer Jason Aaron, penciler and inker Javier Garon, colorist Jason Keith, letterer Corey Petit, and editors Martin Byro, Alana Smith, and Tom Brevoort. Tommy, I haven't asked you. I've written a little bit of a bare bones here. So listeners, it's a bit of a synopsis just in case you haven't read it and you want to know what we are going to be talking about. Tommy will read a bare bones, and then we'll follow that with our aspects. So writing, artwork, characterizations, references, themes, we'll get into it. It'll hopefully be a little bit more in-depth than our bonus episode. So Tommy, would you like to take it away?
Here are the bare bones, Avengers 33. Iron Fist discovers a meditating Moon Knight at the foot of Kunlun, and what appears to be a civil encounter soon turns to animosity as Moon Knight attacks, as he claims to seek the Iron Fist. A brutal battle ensues with Moon Knight ultimately claiming victory by absorbing Danny's power into a mystical ankh. Dr. Stephen Strange is next, followed by a deceptive carjacking of the Hell Charger in East LA, much to Robbie Reyes' confusion. In Wakanda, an armored Moon Knight, along with an army of mummies, storms the gates only to be stopped by the Black Panther. Unable to extract the power from T'Challa, Moon Knight leaves to encounter Thor on the moon. The awesome power of Moon Knight is revealed as he controls Thor's hammer, Uru being made from one of the first moons, before crushing the Asgardian god with a barrage of literal moons from multiple dimensions. After having defeated one of the most powerful Avengers, Moon Knight kneels at the feet of Khonshu, and his mission is revealed. By gathering the powers of all the mightiest heroes, Moon Knight has become Earth's mightiest hero, and the last hope to save the world.
Yes, so that was a summary of what happened I don't know, Tommy. As I mentioned in the bonus episode, for me it was a cracker of an issue. I know people have different perspectives and stuff, but overall for you, what did you think of Avengers 33?
I really enjoyed. I'm going to pop this up onto our document camera for our patroonies. It's never too late to become a patroonie. You get a video copy of the issue. This is the Marvel Zombies variant. That might be a 1 in 10. And then here's the original cover. But for everybody to look at. So I haven't been following the Avengers very closely, as stated earlier. I do look forward to going back and reading Aaron's run. I've had a lot of fun kind of catching his work as a writer over the last few years. And the Avengers is it's an evergreen comic. It's I think it's generally always a series that is worth picking up, whether in trade paperback or just a single issue. And obviously Disney and Marvel have banked on that recently with the films, but I really enjoyed it. So that said, that we can expect that the Avengers is going to be the top flight, and you can probably have a lot of fun in any issue. And this is not just me as a Moon Knight fan. This was something that was exciting because it's a shakeup, and I know that there's some controversy, and I'm sure we'll get into that as to why maybe we've retconned certain features, but I thought that this was a lot of fun, not just as a Moon Knight fan, but to see some of the heavy hitters and some of the most important characters in the history of Marvel basically be brought to their knees. So I really enjoyed it. I have a few criticisms, as I'm sure many of us do, but this is just really exciting. And this cover, the original cover, is just so cool.
Yeah, the cover.
And to know that this has been basically 2 years in the making with that one little page.
Yeah, absolutely. That was all the way back in Generations, wasn't it? There was that one off the big kind of thick issue, and it mentioned, the Temple of Khonshu, rising and such. And that was all amongst, all these other events that have since unfolded. I can't think from the top of my head. There's something to do with Galactus and all that. There was that one page, you're right. There was actually two. There was a spread, and it had all these kind of visions of what was going to happen. And we finally got it. Look, I think it was very much a setup issue, Tommy. Like it was very much. But what I think offset that was number one, the great action scenes, which I really did enjoy. We get a substantial fight at the beginning with Moon Knight and Iron Fist. It's not just like a page or two and it's done. It actually goes on for a bit, which is nice. And second, I think Aaron, as you alluded to, he kind of manipulates and twists and turns a few things to make you kind of read it going, that's a nice take. That's interesting. I mean, we'll get to it. I mean, the whole thing is Thor's hammer. We'll get to it. But I found it really, really interesting. I mean, the art as well. I mean, you're talking about great action scenes. If you have a capable artist, it can really just like shoot it out of the stratosphere. And for me, Javier Garron's art, along with the colors, big shout out to Jason Keith. I found the colors just amazing, especially kind of the cosmic aspects. And yeah, so it's very much a simple premise. Like if we're looking at writing, Tommy, it's one of those age-old stories of someone coming and, just beating all these, big hitters. And in this instance, he's assimilating all the powers into him. It's not much is revealed.
Not even into him, just these ankhs.
Just the ankhs, yeah.
I mean, that's a separate object, and the fact that he's wearing it, that's something that I'm going to be very interested to watch over the next 6 issues of this. Is it important that they need to be in close proximity? To Mark and to Moon Knight, and around his neck. There's the scene later in the issue with Robbie Reyes where the ankh is characteristically or stylistically, I should say, thrown around the rear view mirror.
Oh yeah.
You know, as a decoration, and given he's riding in the Charger, and that's a source of power. But is it important that that artifact is near him because he's collecting all the powers into these objects? And what if they get separated? You know, and that could then be another quest. So
well, I'm going to be very nerdy and geeky here as well. I'm going to jump ahead and just ask as well what you think, Tommy. So are those Ankhs, are they powering Moon Knight, or has he already been instilled with this power of Khonshu on top of that? So he beats Iron Fist, and we know on any given day, you know, I'd hate to say it, but on any given day, Iron Fist would beat Moon Knight in a fight. He's one of the best fighters in the Marvel Universe, and he's got the power of the Iron Fist. So Moon Knight has been imbued with some sort of power. He hasn't got the Ankhs yet, so I guess I'm answering my question, but he tends to get stronger, and by the time he beats Thor, he seems to be quite powerful. Now, is that powered from the Ankhs, or is it something you think purely? Yeah. So this is from Serpent War that you're showing.
Yep. Yeah. So for our listeners, this is I'm now showing on our video feed. Again, join as a patroon, get the video feed. But Conan Serpent War issue number 4. So in that short series, this is the final of the 4 issues. And at the end, the last several pages are kind of like an epilogue to those 4 issues. And some of those pages you see what might be Moon Knight, what might be Khonshu. Moon Knight being like maybe a different form of the Avatar, actually speaking to Set. And then there are a final few pages where you then see Mark Spector in New York, not in that dumpy apartment that we saw within the Bemis run. And his eyes are aglow with this almost white blue light. And Mark is asking, as he holds his hand and it kind of clenches his fist, you know, what have you done to me? Speaking, of course, to his patron, speaking to Khonshu. And I think that we must have, through the Marvel editing process, but Zub must have set up the Age of Khonshu with those final few pages. And so I think that while Moon Knight is gaining new eternal powers, you know, we know, especially from discussion on the Facebook page, that the Avengers, I'm going to muck this up, but is it 1 million BC?
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
That, you know, we have these eternal powers in the Black Panther, and the Phoenix Force, I believe, is part of that.
Yes.
And,
Starbrand as well.
And Starbrand, now we have this baby Starbrand from Avengers issue 30, 31 and 32, I think. Yeah. And the Iron Fist. That I think that Moon Knight now has the force of Khonshu as this eternal entity. But then in order to defeat this devil that is mentioned later in 33, he has to take on each of these other powers. And the Black Panther, I have so many questions about those Black Panther pages. So I think that after Serpent War, or at the end of Serpent War, in that epilogue, that Khonshu has basically really made Mark at least a demigod, right? You know, he's raised him to a point where he's not just human. And this brings us back to the Fist of Khonshu series, where we saw that there's, you know, almost a magic or these godly powers that come with the waning of the moon or the waxing of the moon. Whereas within the Mensch run, and even within Mark Spector Moon Knight, and then later issues, we always question whether Khonshu is there. Yeah. Or if this is in the later runs, if this is really just an aspect, as a term has come in this community, of his mind. Yeah. So I think that I think that he's definitely super powered here, and that's part of the fun.
Yeah, look, I think also as well, it's very important, and I'm glad that you raised the issue of Serpent War, because I've come across a few people online as well, Tommy, that are unaware of that run, so they're just kind of like, huh? Moon Knight? What the hell has happened to Moon Knight? So it's very important to show that this is a continuation of sorts from the Jim Zub Serpent War, and it's very much laid. The foundation is laid in those in those 4 issues, even going back then. But so that was the question I was going to have to you, Tommy, as well. If so, Zub and Aaron, okay, let me just say this out first. If Zub and Aaron were working and coordinating their works, then how far do you take that? So if Aaron has taken on board what Zub has done to Moon Knight, or vice versa, and they've given him this power, talking about the devil, to me, and I mentioned this in the bonus episode, and you showed that up there for Patroni's, it would make sense that it's the worm. So we were talking a bit earlier about how Mephisto, and Jason Aaron has used Mephisto a lot in the Avengers run. But then if he's working with Jim Zub and they're kind of bouncing ideas, surely it's got to be the worm. The worm was left hanging in the Serpent War, if I'm correct.
Yeah, certainly. And I'm queuing up some pages here, but so this is repurposing an old comic, and I want to make sure I get this right. But the Valley of the Worm. Sorry, I'm speaking off the mic here. I believe that this one came out in the 70s.
Right.
And we can add that in the show notes.
Yes.
But that becomes the chief antagonist for Serpent War, and it's not set. We're all made to believe that it's set to begin with, and with the now I'm going to blank on the book. I have it 3 feet away from me, but this past year, Marvel released the history of Marvel. Several issues.
Yeah. The Marvel Handbook or something. It's like the history of the Marvel universe.
Yeah. It might be the history of the Marvel universe. Yeah. And then over the course of about half a dozen issues, I think the second or the third issue, it was probably the second issue, Set was introduced as one of the 3 original entities. And Set being completely evil and still within the Egyptian mythos as being this evil force. But then it's discovered within Serpent War that Set is not the true evil. It's the worm.
Yes.
And it's spelled different ways. WORM in the Valley of the Worm, WYRM is this kind of drake or dragon-like beast. And it's something that is wholly mysterious, and it is for the most part left as a cliffhanger at the end of Serpent War. Yes. And we haven't heard anything since.
No.
So I would be really excited to see if Aaron does use this mysterious force as something that's new, or maybe something that's been lingering. But I have faith that Moon Knight is not evil, right? In the sense that, and Khonshu too.
Yeah.
But that Khonshu is privy to information that other patrons or the other heroes that we see within the Avengers are not.
Yes.
And action needs to be taken. It needs to be done now.
Yep. Well, it was a lot more.
It's kind of like Khonshu's the new shield,
Yeah, I mean, it was a lot more. That the last page was a lot more reaffirming for Khonshu. Just the little things that it said, like grooming Moon Knight to be the Earth's mightiest hero and the last hero. You kind of get the sense that so Khonshu is actually pushing a noble cause. Yeah, that's it. Beautifully drawn by Javier Garron there, and that's what I was talking about. The colors. Tommy, I just love the colors. And another little note I put on the artwork, I loved how you can only just see it there. Well, not typically that, but whenever you see the full moon or the moon in the sky, it's not a drawn moon. It's like an image that they use, and because there's a lot of digital, overlap with actual drawing. So you get this really beautiful glowing moon in a lot of the pages. But that's a beautiful image there. Also, Tommy, I was going to say. And this is, a little bit of I guess, I don't know, is the scoop or not, because I actually had been briefly chatting with Jim Zub as well, because I actually wanted to get him on the show as well. And he gave me the impression, though, that he pretty much kind of did Serpent War, wash his hands of it kind of thing. Not in a bad way, but he just completed his job, and then he gave it to Jason Aaron. So he gave me the impression that they didn't really... collaborate in any sense, but it's hard not to think that they did because of basically the power set of Moon Knight. So there must have been some early talk or coordination between the two, but there may not be. That's the only thing that's kind of making me doubt that there might be anything to do with the worm. In that Jim Zub said, yeah, basically, it's all in Jason Aaron's hands now. I can't really. It might have been smoke and mirrors. He might have been.
Well, it very well, but at the same time, I feel like, and of course, I'm not know-it-all about the comics industry and how creators communicate with each other outside of being a fan and engaging on Twitter and then within shows like this. But I've got the feeling that that's pretty much the status quo in comics, and it seems like it has been forever. That, you know, especially in the 70s and the early 80s, you get a job, you do your job, you see what happens, and then you move on to the next thing. You know, we've seen creators move from Marvel to DC and then find their own in Image, or go to other publishers or self-publish. So I would believe what Jim Zub said, and that he did his job, and, you know, he was probably given a specific set of parameters, but who's to say that the Marvel editors didn't prescribe those talking points or those objectives, hoping that they can then mold it. I mean, I feel too that, like, when we think about some of our favorite television shows, you create a season and you plan it out and you think that things are going to come to point A, but really they end up going to point B, but that's because the creation process is organic and you find opportunities to grow characters, or you find that there would be a beautiful, dramatic, catastrophic point to end a character's through line. And that will be fulfilling for the readers. It might trouble them terribly, and they may hate you for a year afterward, but it's like, think of Game of Thrones. I don't know if you're Song of Ice and Fire fan, and not the HBO series, but the novels, George R.R. Martin. Yeah. Here, you know, we have millions of people throughout the world. I think I'm saying that correctly. Millions of people throughout the world that have read at least the first book, A Game of Thrones, and now we have fans that have come in through HBO and they've then reread the books, and we're waiting for the next novel to come out. But we find that he does such an excellent job as a modern author of building up characters, and you love the character either because they're terribly, terribly evil, or because and they're doing things that you would never do, and so you can kind of live vicariously through them, or you have such excellent paragons of perfection in other characters, and then they're gone. Yeah. Because they make the wrong choice, or somebody else makes the wrong choice, and they have to suffer the consequence. So I think that in the creator's world, maybe that's wholly true, that Jim Zub he did his job. He was given a few objectives, and he wrote his arc and then left it a little open for the next creator. Yeah. But as a fan, and this is kind of coming back to what we mentioned earlier in the show, or what I mentioned earlier in the show, I thrive as a fan. I think of anything, but especially as a Moon Knight fan, on the risk of being let down. And I take pleasure in that this idea that I have to wait a long time to get the character that I want and get the story that I think I want. But I actually hope that the creator is going to push it in a wholly different direction and surprise me. Yeah. And so that's, I think, this first issue, where some of us, at least as it was publicized, Moon Knight, he's taking all the Avengers powers. It's the Age of Khonshu. Oh man, he's the worst villain that the Avengers have ever seen. Most of us know this is going to be all copacetic by the end of the arc, because it's the Avengers line, and that's how it works. But we don't know yet. And we'll see what happens in a month, hopefully, when the next issue comes out.
Yeah, I mean, I really do appreciate how, and it's a sign of good storytelling and stuff, and also a sign of fandom of how invested comic readers are in it. Because as you say, I mean, you hit it on the head there. We know it's things are going to simmer down and return to normal, but there are people there that are kind of worried, and, like, you know, there's no way that he could have beaten the Avengers so easily and all that. Bear in mind, though, that Moon Knight hasn't come across the likes of the Phoenix Force or Starbrand, the two big, like the huge forces of Avengers a Million BC. So we've still got that to go. But for the most part, this one issue, he's decimated most of them. But yeah, and I do appreciate it. But I can understand that fans would be like, if you're a huge Ghost Rider, Doctor Strange, Iron Fist fan, you'd be kind of like, there's no way that he would have. But I guess the whole premise, it just serves it just serves this story. Like, you're just going to have to believe that Moon Knight is this powerful, and we'll get the answers later on, and all that sort of stuff.
Yeah. Pull a Samuel Taylor Coleridge, suspend your disbelief.
Yes, exactly.
Be done with it. Admit that you're a comic fan, and if you admit that you're a comics fan, anything is possible.
Yeah, exactly. The other thing let's get into it though then. So Moon Knight is taking these powers then, right, or absorbing, or somehow taking them into the Ankh. Are we looking at, what do you reckon, Tommy? Are we looking at a Super Skrull-esque kind of result here? Will Moon Knight be able to summon the Iron Fist and open the Eye of Agamotto, and he's shown he's wielded the hammer, or is this what we're going to see, or is it something a bit more abstract?
I think that's certainly possible, in that one would think that up front, if he's taking each of these individual powers, he's, as you mentioned, Super Skrull, or he's kind of becoming the Green Ranger or the White Ranger from Power Rangers, and he's trying to be the best at the best. And there's also something very frightening about that, this idea that one person can save everybody. We could see Moon Knight by the end of this become some type of Christ figure where he becomes this ultimate force, but then by the end he sacrifices himself, or maybe he doesn't sacrifice himself. Maybe he dies, and then he has to be resurrected again, which that would be another creator point of like, hey, I ended his story here. What are you going to do with it 2 years from now? So I think that right now we can only assume that he's taking what seems to be about 5 powers, maybe 6 if I get that number right, so that he can become this ultimate weapon.
Yeah.
But that is totally Khonshu at the same time. I mean, Khonshu as an entity, at least within these comics, is very selfish. He wants things done in a very specific way. He exacts pain, seeks vengeance.
Yeah.
And punishes Mark when he doesn't follow suit. So I think that at this time, I think that this is really, it's very much the Godhead demanding that the Son do exactly as he's expected.
Yeah.
So
look, we've seen Mark be resurrected before. I mean, that's his whole premise, isn't it? But he has been resurrected again. We saw that in Resurrection War. After the events of Mark Spector Moon Knight. So he's been resurrected at least twice. We know he's got no problems with coming back from the dead. So there's that. There's one thing I was thinking. I'd be bitterly disappointed, though, Tommy, if since he's getting this conglomeration of powers and stuff, I would be disappointed if they go down the route of his DID and his handling of different personalities allows him to manage these multiple, something like that. I'd be pretty kind of like, oh no, we've kind of seen that done a bit
back
before.
To Bendis.
Yeah, and even Contagion, which was not that recent, not that long ago, where it's kind of like, oh, look, let me handle it because I know how to deal with multiple personalities. If it goes down like that, I'd be a little bit disappointed.
Yeah, I absolutely agree with that, and I would hope that because the Avengers is such a flagship series for Marvel, that they're not going to go with some cheap gimmick that like, oh, we have to rush the writing, and I don't think that Jason Aaron's going to do that, but it might bleed into a little bit more of there is the chance that it could blend into the Bendis era of that he takes on these new aspects or personalities and makes them his own, and that's how he then channels the power. Yeah. So I think that like with Contagion and the Bendis run, they're two different.
Oh yeah, they are
approaches to the character, and I would certainly be disappointed if it becomes a joke and becomes Contagion. I had fun with that because it's my favorite character. And I know that there's some critics out there that, oh, you're ruining Moon Knight, you're making him a joke, and he's written too much like Deadpool. We heard that with Damnation. But I think that anytime I see Moon Knight, I'm going to have fun with it. But I would agree that if they go the Contagion route, that's going to be a disservice to the character. And when you're trying to develop this as an IP to gain traction, especially with the announcement that we hope is still going to happen with the Disney Plus series, and then the rumors that Moon Knight might appear in future films, like with the Blade film coming out with Mahershala Ali. Cannot wait. At first I thought, how can they recast Mahershala Ali? He's already in the universe, but I don't care. He is incredible. He is absolutely incredible, and he is going to make that Blade character outstanding.
Yep.
But the rumors that maybe Moon Knight is going to be a part of that film, or that we might get some Easter eggs in She-Hulk or these other short or series for Disney Plus, you cannot take an arc in the Avengers using Moon Knight as a central figure and then diminish everything within the last few pages of the final issue in issue 37. That would be wholly inappropriate, I think, as a publisher, and it would be such a letdown, not just to fans, but to general readers of the Avengers.
Yeah, true. I was just thinking about also as well something that that Phil Dropking Phil had mentioned about worried about the status quo of Moon Knight as well. So what is your take? Because you're talking about the TV show and stuff, and surely, they're going down the route of street level, Street Fighter again. He's not going to be, I don't know, I could be wrong, but he's not going to be depicted as this iteration of Moon Knight as cosmic and all that. What are your feelings about how? What are your feelings in the comics of them maybe neglecting that whole DID side of Moon Knight, similar to Mark Spector, and maybe concentrating more on the Egyptian mythological side, because we haven't seen that in a while. That was, as you mentioned, Priest of Khonshu. That was all the way back in 1985. Now, there are different parties. Some Loonies would be going, yes, this is great. We haven't had that for ages. But there's a large contingent of Loonies going, no, well, I like my street level guy, and I like this whole mental battle that he has. What's your take? How do you see this kind of would you be happy if we do get a title series with Moon Knight specifically cosmic powered and intimately connected to Khonshu?
In the comics?
Yeah, I mean, so I guess because some Loonies have concerns about the status quo. Like, will they be seeing him? Will we seeing him now for 2 or 3 years now? Like, this. Yeah. Or
I just thought you meant how Disney's going to take it within the show, but within the comics, as a fan, I just want to see more Moon Knight, and I don't think I don't think that Marvel's going to make him so pulpy and watered down that it's going to ruin my love for Moon Knight. But as a fan, I want to see a love for the character grow.
Yep.
I don't want this to be some campy character. Mm-hmm. I mean, there's some pleasure I take in that like, oh, there's this small group of us, and when you find a Looney, you can have a really cool conversation, but it's like a secret group. I don't want that for the character. I want to celebrate the character because I've had so much fun. It's kind of like, at least in my childhood, the Luke Skywalkers, the Indiana Jones. Star Wars has become so big over the last 20 years, but especially since Disney bought Lucasfilm. But I still have fun with it, and I love being able to have fun with my kids and my students in talking about the different iterations of these characters, whether it's Luke Skywalker in Star Wars, or in Star Wars Episode 4, A New Hope, or in Lego Star Wars, or what, however detailed you want to get.
Yeah.
So I would love a new comic series, where Moon Knight has these powers and he becomes a cosmic entity. I would love that. I would also love another series where Moon Knight is a respected member of the Avengers or the West Coast Avengers.
Yeah.
I would love a series where he is a reject of both of those groups. I would love a series where, going all the way back to 2004, 2005, where he is rejected by Khonshu. And who knows, that could absolutely be what follows this. And that, Khonshu, hey, you're my son, over the last 2 or 3 years in the limited series and Damnation and Contagion and yada, 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 the Bemis run where, okay, I have a tight relationship with you, Mark Spector, but I'm going to use you, and I'm going to use you in the ultimate way in this Avengers run, and then I'm going to throw you out, and I'm going to find somebody new. I would love that.
Yeah,
so I think that
that's open. That's totally possible. Yeah.
There's no point in bashing Moon Knight. He's not the character to go after. So
that's very interesting. I like it. Loonies probably know my take already as well. Like, one of the main things I love about Moon Knight is not only the character, but just how every volume seems to be quite different from each other. So there's not that often you get a character that somehow still maintains its essence, but you get differences. Whether you like them or not as well. Like, your Bendises, your Beamises as well, but your Houstons, your Mensches, they're all quite different. Your Fist of Khonshu, your Vengeance of the Moon Knight. So I just love that diversity of how the writers are allowed to kind of free rein it a little and do what they want. So this is very different. I haven't seen a cosmic powered Moon Knight. I'd be all for it as well. I do like my street level, but at the same time, as you kind of said, I'm a Moon Knight fan as well. So I mean, I'll follow it and I'll enjoy it. If it's badly written and it's badly drawn, then I will, I'll put my hand up and say it is, But if it's a well-drawn series, and if it's a well-written series, the premise to me kind of follows on from that, and then you're still being told great stories. Anyway, that's my thought. Let's just go into, there's some sticking points here, Tommy. Thor's hammer, Mjolnir, it got a lot of discussion about being retconned, the Uru hammer. MCU called it from a dead star. Now it seems to be from a moon. What are your thoughts on that? Anything kind of? I found it was actually quite cool. And this is what I was thinking about with Jason Aaron twisting things and making things a little bit different, giving it points of interest, points of differences, to essentially a very straightforward story. So I found it fun. How about yourself?
Yeah, and I feel like I'm a comics fan because I know that things are going to change and things are going to change with time. And so since I'm not a huge Thor fan, I think I've always loved the character, but I am not passionate about Thor as I am with Moon Knight. So if this were flipped and there was some retcon of Moon Knight that was just wholly unacceptable in my mind, okay, maybe I could empathize, but our character, Moon Knight, has been retconned so many times, and things have changed. You go from the Mensch run to the Fist of Khonshu, as we mentioned before, and how he's become superpowered, and then it's just Mark Spector Moon Knight, and then that has become part of the character, and why I love the character, that there are changes, because when you have these, used the term before, but evergreen characters like Thor and Captain America, who is the stoutest and the ever present and ever righteous and will always remain the same character of all the Avengers, it's not exciting for me. The movies are fun, but in comics, I want to see change. I want to see things. I want to see these characters become malleable and have their different character arcs experience a ton of different bumps, because it's not everything can end in resolution. So with the Uru becoming, or at least us being made known that this comes from the moon or the first moon, or it's made of a moon rock, I think it's pretty cool that Khonshu is not just the god of our moon that's orbiting Earth within the Egyptian mythos, but that maybe he takes his power from all these bodies that are orbiting throughout the system, and or even different dimensions, and that growth of power or that increase in power is just something that's exciting to me. So
Yeah.
I don't mind the retcon. I think that the idea that Moon Knight, Mark Spector, could control Mjolnir whenever he wanted, that seems strange to me. So that then again lends credence to this idea that Khonshu has given Mark power now, and he can take it away.
Yeah, I don't see that lasting, so I'm not too worried about it. And I think it's a small enough point that the Moonrock Uru hammer, that, you know, whether or not, you know, years down the track you get a Thor series, whether or not Mjolnir is made out of Moonrock or not, it doesn't make a lick of difference. It's interesting though, point that you mentioned, just on a slightly off tangent. I think every character is put through the ringer anyway in some sort of way or another. So fans would be up in arms. You know, look at Secret Empire. Is it Secret Empire with Captain America turning into a Nazi? Which again,
the Cosmic Cube.
Cosmic Cube. There was one I was thinking just on my mind. Wolverine, when he lost his healing factor. I mean, that's a big thing. You're talking about changing someone. That's, you know, and that lasted for a while as well. I think that was, you know, a good 24 or something issues, and that led into something as well. So all these characters, Thor as well, Odin's son, losing an arm, you know, not being worthy, the same sort of difference that you get in a character. And I guess it always generates interest, and for Moon Knight, this has generated his interest in him, that he's become cosmic, and he's touching these holy, you know, relics such as Mjolnir. But I find it really fun. But I also, at the same time, I understand if you do like a certain type of Moon Knight, then absolutely, for sure, this would not be your cup of tea. So pictures there of images in the issue of Moon Knight. Actually, we'll get to the feedback later, but interesting enough, he doesn't hold the hammer. He just controls it. So it's not like he held it. It's not like he's worthy or anything like that, but he can manipulate it. You had a question just before we get into. I guess we've got to, close things out soon though, Tommy, because we've got some feedback to get through. You did mention you had questions about Black Panther and the magic, the mysticism within him. What was it that you were unsure of, or you wanted to know more?
Yeah, so the Black Panther pages were a total of
very short, right?
3, I think.
Yeah.
Which may not be different from the other Avengers with Thor, and I mean the Doctor Strange
was very short.
It was short, and the Robbie Reyes was short as well. But it just seemed like the Black Panther page, even though that there was some build up where T'Challa is actually speaking, not to Mark, but he's speaking to his own while he's approaching Mark Spector, which I thought was such a cool build up for Black Panther, that this guy is a boss, you know, but he keeps his cool no matter where he is.
Yeah.
And he's such a force, and he wasn't addressing Mark or Stephen, as it seems to call him here, Stephen Grant. But whereas with Danny Rand, Iron Fist, and Stephen Strange, and with Thor, Moon Knight just goes after him and he trounces them. After we see Danny Rand go down, after we see Doctor Strange go down, before we get to Thor, we have this like interim set of 3 pages, and all told, it's only 7 or 8 panels when you look at it. And T'Challa he keeps his cool the entire time, and he doesn't go down, or at least we are definitely left on a cliffhanger, because when
it just changes,
Moon Knight,
when
Moon Knight says, and the poses that we see with Moon Knight, I think are super cool, but they're
very cool.
Definitely gleaned from the Bemis run. Yeah, these, I mean, outside of the fact that he seems to be bedecked with the Fist of Khonshu era, Egyptian,
like
regalia, the armor, the gold nunchucks, and who else? Who knows what else he's packing there? But the poses seem to be produced in the same way that we saw within the Bemis run, where it's fun and it's super exciting. There were great fight scenes, but it seems over the top. Yeah, and T'Challa is calm. He's cool. He's composed. And then in that final panel, we see him say that my power is in my blood. And so you're going to have to take all of me. And then we just phase into the Thor scene, and that's it. And so I know that we're going to, well, I would hope that we get some closure or some follow-up in the next issue, or maybe in issue 35, even 2 months from now. But that, I just really wonder, like, is Moon Knight going to sway Black Panther to join him? Is he going to take his power? We see those final comments too, and the last couple pages where Moon Knight is speaking to Khonshu and says that I wasn't able to take the Black Panther. The Phoenix Force is still untethered. The Starbrand Child's being hidden. So it's exciting that, like, hey, we have these plot points, we have these complications that are being added, but why is it that Danny Rand? Why is it that Doctor Strange? Why is it that Thor could be defeated, but T'Challa? What is it about him that makes him so different from the other Avengers? Yeah,
I mean, he just mentions about it's in the blood. For me, it's a little bit of a comic science here. Like, we're talking magic, so magic's in the blood of someone, but not in the other. Like, if you ask me, the likes of Iron Fist and Doctor Strange are infused with magic because, you know, they're highly mystical beings. But yeah, for some reason, you're right. So it does pose a question, and it is left up in the air. It could be that does Moon Knight pursue trying to still get the Black Panther power, or does he just discard it and he's incapacitated T'Challa? We don't know, because it just switches so quickly. So hopefully, I think so too. Hopefully we'll get some sort of resolution. Maybe there's a badly beaten T'Challa, goes back to Avengers Mountain, sees Cap and Iron Man and asks for help. Who knows? So it's very interesting indeed. Ghost Rider, I would have loved to have seen a throwdown between Ghost Rider and Moon Knight. We don't get to see it. There's a bit of an indirect interaction there with him just stealing the car. So that was slightly disappointing for me, but I mean, I still enjoyed it. It was a minor quibble. But yeah, Black Panther from the Christopher Priest run, I just remember that. He's just very well prepared. He always knows what to do. You can't phase T'Challa with anything. He just knows what to do. So whether he had something planned for Moon Knight, we don't know. And I just wanted to point out as well, you mentioned the Fist of Khonshu costume there. So in this issue, we see 4 iterations of Moon Knight. One of them new. So we see the Fist of Khonshu. We see the White Moon Knight that Thor battles. We see Mr. Knight very briefly beating Doctor Strange in a very different way. But then I'll put it as Monk Moon Knight at the very beginning. I haven't seen him before in the sense just bare-chested, more kind of, I don't know, more martial arty than anything else. So yeah, it's nice to see aesthetically that we see 4 different Moon Knights. I certainly appreciated the Fist of Khonshu Moon Knight actually with T'Challa. So
and something too, just in we don't need to discuss this at length, but it did seem almost that while T'Challa references Moon Knight as Stephen, like Stephen Grant, you know, the elites, the wealthy, the power brokers, it was really, really cool to see how Moon Knight's appearance, but also his movements and everything changed for each of the Avengers, that he was prepared for each of them, that he had to maybe physically change himself, or at least change his fighting style to suit the needs of each of the heroes. And, you know, it would have been interesting to see Danny Rand refer to Mark Spector as Steven, as like the 2 New York wealthy individuals, you know, Danny Rand in charge of Rand Enterprises, and then addressing him as Steven. And then the Mr. Knight episode with Doctor Strange, I thought that was kind of interesting. Why is it Mr. Knight with Doctor Strange? Mr. Knight is the opposite of the magical realm. Yeah. You know, he's the investigator. He's the one that gets the dirty jobs done. But it was still really cool to see Jason Aaron and all the creators, but especially Garone with his art of kind of celebrating these iterations.
Definitely. It's a nice nod. Just quickly back to Black Panther. There's something I picked up. Number one with Garon. I love the zealots, whatever, of Moon Knight. We get the bird armor. We get the gold covering. But also, Tommy, I think the reference to Steven, Black Panther's actually talking to Steve Rogers. There, it seems like he's talking through a comms. Because he's going Captain, protect the Starbrand child, and then we know in the Avengers, Black Panther is actually appointed leader of the Avengers, but I think he says he kind of suspects his doom because he goes, "Goodbye, Stephen. The Avengers are yours now." So I think he's referring to. He's got like an earpiece or something talking to.
Right, I misspoke, but because again he refers to him as Captain too,
yes,
right? And so that's when we were talking before that Black Panther, as he's approaching, he doesn't care that Moon Knight's there. He knows that he has friends. He knows that he's speaking to his own.
Yeah.
So I apologize on that slip
right.
up there, but just the confidence that Black Panther has, I think, is just so boss.
It's very regal, isn't it?
He doesn't care.
It's like you stand there, you wait while I deal with my matters, and then I'll talk to you. So,
I know we're running long on time, but the zealots or the priests of Khonshu, that's something that I know that we'll look into in later issues. But big questions: who are these followers? Yeah. It's kind of like the Knights of Ren for me, with the recent Star Wars trilogy that really weren't explored. But with Kylo Ren, who are these other followers behind him? Why are they dressed all in black? Why do they have these lightsabers? Are they just other members of the Jedi Academy from Luke Skywalker? Why does he have these people behind him? And that's kind of the same feeling that I had there is this, who are these people? Because they're not the mummified. They're not the dead, the army of Khonshu behind him. So who are they?
Just firm followers. I'd like to know more about them as well. We've got a fair few issues, hopefully, to go. So I guess we'll just have to kind of wait and see. So Tommy, I think unless are there any other final points? The only other thing I wanted to say was I haven't been following it with the Star. Is it Starbrand? No, it's not with Starbrand. It's with the Captain Marvel thing. There was a similar story about Captain Marvel going badass and beating all the Avengers. I just noted that. And then it seems like Moon Knight's doing the same thing. Not to say that they're connected or parallel at all. I just find it a bit... that was kind of done as well a bit before. But don't quote me because I don't know that story. It could be for totally different reasons and stuff. So,
but at the same time, the comics that we love are also regurgitating the same stories that we've grown up on and have been passed down since forever.
Absolutely.
So, but that doesn't mean that we can't love them. That doesn't mean that we can't find new iterations. But I know.
Have you read that? I haven't read it myself. I've only seen the covers to it. She becomes the Dark Avenger or something, and she
and that was released just this past fall, I believe. But no, I haven't. You gotta keep your interests.
Yeah, of course. You've got to be economical. All right, Tommy. Well, how about we go for a rating? So we've got two choices here: vanilla rating for listeners. You can just do your phase of the moon, or we can go Khonshu's rating system, patented by our good High Priest of Khonshu, with his very bespoke rating system. Tommy, I'll let you go first. Out of 10, what would you give this Avengers Volume 8, Issue 33, The Age of Khonshu Part 1, Moon Knight versus the Avengers?
I think as a Moon Knight fan, I would call this a waxing gibbous, a 3/4 moon. I had a lot of fun with it. I love seeing Moon Knight get back in the mix. But I think that even if I was just following the Avengers run, this was something that was new and it was exciting. It was a change up, which one can expect every 5, 6, or 7 issues. And I would still give it a 3/4 moon. So, and this is a great new point. This is a great pickup point. So if you're looking to try a new series, go for it. Pick it up.
Yeah, awesome. So 7.5 out of 10, a waxing gibbous. I'd go a little bit higher. I'm going to give it an 8 out of 10. It's pretty big. I mean, I'm not talking about this being a masterpiece or any sort of highbrow sort of art or anything like that. It's a good ride. It's a nice, enjoyable roller coaster. And yeah, so 8 out of, for my personal enjoyment, And being a Moon Knight fan, of course, that colours my view. So a big, beautiful yellow man, as Khonshu would say. 8 out of 10. It's a very simple premise, but Aaron does it. He's a good writer. Like, he makes it interesting. It's a very simple story, but he makes it interesting, and he adds new things. He adds new flavour to it. So I've got to give him props for that. And also more than adequately supported by the artwork. I think if the artwork was subpar, then my mark would be really greatly affected. Garon's art and the colours by Keith are just beautiful. So it's a very beautiful thing to look at. So there you go. Loony, 7.5 and an 8 out of our review for this issue. Fantastic stuff. Tommy, before we go, we do have quite a bit of feedback though we want to get through. Shall we go through it? We'll alternate. We've got a few from, say, Twitter and Facebook, and then we have a few voicemails that I'd like to play out. Yep. Okay, I'll go first with the Twitter one. It's a short and sharp. This is from Brent Jackson 30 at Brent Jackson 30, and he says, no spoilers, but it did remind me Moon Knight needs to use his nunchucks more. And he put up a little picture of the Teenage Mutant Ninja Turtles, so I guess he's a Michelangelo fan.
There you go. And the Cesti or the Cestices.
Ah, yes. Oh, I
want to
love
see
them.
those come back too.
I love them. Bring
Hard
them
hitters.
back. They're terribly sadistic, but anyway. How about the next one? We've got a fair bit from the Facebook group.
Yep, so Giovanni Zamora writes, just got done reading it. I think it's badass. Cannot wait till the next issue. I wonder what Khonshu means by save the world.
Yeah, thank you, Giovanni. I think it's more than just the world. I think it encapsulates, we're talking like worlds and maybe universe. It seems really kind of high level stuff. But no, thanks for your feedback, and yeah, I mean, I'm looking forward to 34 straight away as well. And we have another one from Hector Robertson. He says, man, that was the best thing ever. Fist of Khonshu, Foot of Sphinx. Thank you, Hector. Yes, I think we mentioned, or we've had feedback in our bonus episode, Moon Knight only needs 2 moves to defeat the Iron Fist. And a lot of them, 99% of it was Fist of Khonshu. That's all he needs, baby.
One punch man.
You got to get that Cestus in, and he'll be walloping plenty. But thank you, Hector. Always good to hear from you. And, you can take the large one, Tommy.
Yeah, so Kristen Arias with a bit of commentary here. Hi, everyone. New Moon Knight fan here. Started reading a few months ago. And new addition to the Loonies group. Thank you to the admins for accepting my join.
Thank you.
I personally prefer Khonshu being real instead of his existence being ambiguous. So I was happy about that. I enjoyed revisiting the Mr. Knight persona, no matter how briefly. And the 2014 run is my all-time favorite so far. Mark actually praying so much was an interesting change, as someone else noted. As long as they properly explain the character development behind it, I'm on board with this new dynamic. It's weird seeing him go from struggling in a fight with the Iron Fist to not breaking a sweat while throwing around Thor. I honestly didn't like that much, but I guess that's how these big-name comics roll. I'm wondering if we'll see any of Moon Knight's side characters, like Frenchie, Marlene, or his daughter. If anyone can talk Mark out of his servitude to Khonshu, it is one of them. I have doubts that they'll make an appearance, though. I really like how you brought up Khonshu's status in Egyptian mythology. Either the Egyptian gods are just way more powerful like you predicted, or Khonshu has found a way to greatly grow in power within his own pantheon and modern worship since those myths first formed. I rather prefer my latter idea and would like a few comic strips showing how that happened, but I would be satisfied with the first explanation for sure.
Yep, excellent. Thank you so much, Kristen. Always welcome in new Loonies, and thank you so much for your feedback as well. A couple of very interesting thoughts there. Look, I think I responded to you with the Iron Fist fight and then the Thor fight. The way I took it, although it may not make too much sense as we talk through it, Tommy, was that I thought that he was getting stronger as he was beating them. That's how I took it. So he fought Iron Fist first. There was a bit of a struggle there. Obviously, the fight lasted a bit longer, but by that stage, he had Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, by the time he had Thor, he was chucking moons around. So I think that's how that's head canon, I think they call it. That's what I kind of said in my head. I don't know. Did you give it much thought, or
just that? Again, I think we kind of commented on this before, but that Khonshu needs those specific powers because those are the eternal powers, or those are the ancient powers. And so, as powerful as Khonshu is, and in putting his faith in Mark, I think, which is a lot of. And that actually comes out of the Bemis run, this idea that if you have faith, then these things are real. But this is coming from the opposite way of Khonshu putting his faith in Mark and giving his power to Mark, and then therefore imbuing him with these godlike powers. He is getting more powerful, but the Iron Fist power, the Sorcerer Supreme's power, the Dam's power in Robbie Reyes and Ghost Rider, that's something on par with Khonshu. So yes, he's getting more powerful, but he's gaining power beyond human capability, right? He's being put onto the equal level, or this pantheon of Eternals or gods, or whatever we want to call them.
Yeah, no, that sounds right as well. And what do you think about side characters? Look, I don't have much hope in seeing many supporting characters. No,
not in the Avengers. It's too busy.
Yeah.
Those we all love Frenchie and Marlene and Jenna, but Dietrich is. We'll see what happens with that character. But I'd love to see Jenna come back. I'd love to see Crawley come back. But those are characters that most certainly are going to be saved for a Moon Knight series.
Yeah,
I doubt that they'll come into the Avengers.
Yeah, exactly. It's kind of like I don't know, your Sharon Carters and your your supporting characters. They pretty much inhabit the title series. There's way too busy, as you say. There's so many characters in the Avengers. Unfortunately, I don't think we'll see it. But big thanks again to Crescent for that, and I hope you enjoy your interacting with many Loonies in the community. It's really great fun. Now, Tommy, I'm wondering if you can line up. We do have 3 bits of voicemail here. The first one from Charlie, the Professor Esser. You would have heard him in the serial. He was the Professor. And Charlie, thank you so much. You have left some feedback. So let's hear what you have to say.
Hello, Ray. It is I, Charlie, the Professor Esser, here to give you my professations on the Avengers, number 33, Earth's Mightiest Heroes, The Dawn of the Age of Khonshu, Part 1. Okay, now, I was really excited about this because I was thinking about how Marvel has interwoven Moon Knight into the pulpy Howard verse of Conan and Solomon Kane and the gang, and although this really isn't that, I am just loving what it is instead, which is a super comic booky, ridiculous Moon Knight, which is my favorite kind of Moon Knight, who is just, he is basically warfing all the Avengers real quick here. One of the great items here, we have the fight with Iron Fist, and of course you have all the moves of Iron Fist, and then you just see Fist of Khonshu, Fist of Khonshu, Fist of Khonshu, Fist of Khonshu. And it's delightful. He gets that little Iron Fist. Again, feeding into that comic bookery, the Attack of the Mummies, which, is such a, not what mummies were, but what a Pulp Fiction writer would have imagined mummies to be, as these Walking Dead shambling creations, is just a delight for what is our Moon Knight story. A lot of fun little gags about, it's the biggest super moon ever, and that's why he's so powerful. Smacking around Samaya Bagamoto, steals the Hell Charger, because sure, why not? And we've got our little moon cultist, which is fun. And then Black Panther coming along with him is just, to me, delightful in the idea that, whatever he's going to do, he's going to be by his side, of course. Now, fun item for all of those playing along at home. Moon Knight never touches the hammer. He is only moving it because it is actually part of the first moon. Because I guess all moons are related, and now he can control all moons, including teleporting moons from all over the galaxy to smack around Thor. So that's delightful. And then we get to meet our Khonshu, who is a big bird skullhead monster. So not looking at all like the Khonshu, the statues of Khonshu we have seen prior to this. So is that an important detail? Is Moon Knight being led astray, or is Moon Knight really the last defender of Earth? Tune in 30 days to find out. Thanks for letting me be a part of this, Ray. As always, I am Charlie the Professor Esser. Follow me on the Twitters at CharlieEssescr. Look for the 2 E's in the middle for quality. Thank you.
Yeah, thank you so much, Charlie.
Incredible.
Thank you for that. Absolutely. Look, the one big main thing, it is big, dumb, bombastic fun, isn't it, as well? Like, that's what I love about it, the pulpiness, and you can't take yourself too seriously with this. And it comes with the territory with the Avengers, just up there with crazy powers and stuff. So, totally loved it. I'm not sure about that Khonshu thing at the end. I don't know about you, Tommy. I just thought that Garon thought the bird Khonshu looked a lot more cooler than the statue one, because Cullen Bunn and oh gosh, I've forgotten. Ibrahim Mustafa from the annual. They depicted Khonshu as more of that statue of Khonshu. But I thought maybe Garon just thought, it looks cool, so I want to draw him. Yeah.
Yeah, the bird skull really came about in the Bendis run, didn't it?
The Ellis.
Or was it Vengeance of the Moon Knight?
Oh no, Ellis. I think was the. Oh no.
Yeah.
Oh, it was Vengeance.
In
wasn't
Vengeance
it?
of the Moon Knight.
It was.
Yeah, in Vengeance,
Yeah.
there was he appears as this little tiny bird on the shoulder.
You're right. Although it was
especially in those first few issues before
Yeah.
the Sentry comes in.
He
kind of like talks trash to Moon Knight. So I mean, the fact, and if that's where it started, great, the origin, and we can check that and we can add that to the show notes. But I'm pretty sure it was in that run.
I think it was, yeah.
But the fact that that's been maintained, and there's something so eerie about it, and something that is, at least within the last 10 years, has become so central to the character. I love that. But you also have the wrappings. As if that he's been mummified. This idea too that maybe Khonshu was once a living being and he was then put into eternal life or put into eternity, and then gained his power from there. So I think it's cool. It's as we mentioned before with the different iterations of Moon Knight, it's an homage to the different versions that we've seen. But something I'm just picking up now. And by the way, the Professor, that was great. I love the gusto. That was charismatic, and that was a great commentary. But if you look on the last page of Avengers 33, Moon Knight's cowl is sculpted, and so the little like widow's peak that we see within some versions of Moon Knight that extends over his forehead. Yeah, it's actually sculpted there. It's cool. It's kind of cool. Yeah. And the face mask too. We didn't mention this before, but the face mask is very different than what we've seen before. It's at least the way that Garon has illustrated it.
Yeah. No. Really good. Again, Garon just top notch. I'm loving his art. Fantastic. Well, again, thanks, Charlie. How about we go to the next one? This is from another colleague of the Southgate Media Group. It's Lilith Hellfire. What does Lilith have to say?
Howdy, Moon Knight nerds. Lilith Hellfire here from Capes and Lunatics podcast. I have nothing but good things to say about Avengers number 33, The Age of Khonshu Part 1. But are we sure this issue wasn't supposed to be titled Moon Knight Kills the Marvel Universe? Because it certainly feels like this is how a book like that would start off. Moon Knight laying waste to almost every Avenger was priceless. Mwah! Pure perfection. This is the kind of competence the Punisher should strive for. I'm not the biggest Avengers fan, but Jason Aaron has absolutely been killing it on the Avengers book in my eyes, mainly because he hasn't been focusing on the Avengers roster, much to Avenger fans' chagrin, I guess, but hey, different strokes for different folks. I love how he expands the mythology. He gives us fresh takes on characters, and I feel like he's definitely been balancing the story between being character-driven while keeping the plot and pacing tight. He does have a slightly over-the-top nature that's somewhat of an adjustment, but if somebody can make Iron Fist interesting, hey, all aces over here for me. I love that he depicted Moon Knight's man on a mission mentality. I love that Moon Knight's kind of this ignored character and people think he's like crazy, and I just kind of like those characters. And when people like underestimate a person like that and then, you know, they get their comeuppance, especially if it's in the currency of pain, I'm here for it. Definitely loving Javier Garron's artwork. It's very kinetic and crisp, and you know, I'm a sucker for anything with a little manga inspired flair, so of course my favorite panel is of Iron Fist and Moon Knight fighting. That's how you kick off an issue. Also, definitely can't forget the other two fellas in the artwork department, colorist Jason Keith and letterer Corey Pettit. I feel like this is a great jumping on point for new readers and definitely a great introduction for people who don't know jack about Moon Knight. This definitely feels like they're building up some buzz for the TV show. I did feel like Moon Knight was definitely OPAF, but that's probably because my preference for Moon Knight is definitely when he's doing his street level stuff, aka doing his best Batman impression. Sorry, Ray, you know your girl had to do it to you like that. But no, overall, I really like this book. I think this is definitely going to get a lot of people reading Moon Knight, for better or for worse. Look forward to hearing what you boys thought about this issue. And this is Lilith Hellfire signing off. Out of the pouch. Boing!
Thank you, Lilith. Familiar sign off. I don't know where it's from. But no, thank you, Lilith. That was really cool. And far out manga inspired. How cool was that 1,000 Fist of Khonshu punch at the beginning? I think Rick Ball mentioned that as well in the bonus episode, JoJo's Adventures or something. I'm not a big manga anime fan, but I really did like it as well. So nice pick up there, Lilith. Also, it is a little jarring. I mean, we've gone through it. It is a little jarring to see Moon Knight so powered, right? But again, it's. I think it's great that Aaron does this straight away, all in one issue, to get it all out of the way, and then so you kind of have to. This is it. This is what we're going to deal with for the rest of the story. But yeah, any thoughts there, Tommy?
Just that I know that many of my students have told me that I have to watch JoJo's Bizarre Adventure, and I know that Rick picked up a PlayStation game. And I didn't even know that this existed. Maybe they only released it in Australia and Japan, but it's a JoJo's Bizarre Adventure. I don't know if it's a fighting game, but he said it's awesome. I followed him on Facebook commenting on that. So if you know, we did see too though that Marvel is starting to bring manga style into their universe. I'm blanking on the title now, but about 6 or 9 months ago, but there was a series that was predominantly built upon East Asian characters
Arrow and Swordmaster. That's on the Agents of Atlas.
The Agents of Atlas, and then there's a few other characters, and so they're starting to bring in that manga style because it's wholly popular in the United States, especially among teenagers and young adults. I grew up with Dragon Ball and Dragon Ball Z, watching that on television, and I too am not a huge manga or anime fan, but it's something that is part of our zeitgeist. And I think that any way that we can celebrate the cultures from throughout our world and kind of bring some globalism to comics and not just have, because all the Avengers are white except for Black Panther, and there are definitely some questions I have about that Black Panther scene as to why Marvel went that direction, as to why he's the one Avenger that can't be brought down, and I support that and celebrate that. But I think that there's there's a lot of change that is on the way in comics.
Yeah.
So
no, that's good. Yeah,
it's awesome.
Absolutely, and I'm glad, Lilith, that you're enjoying it. So hopefully we can discuss the latter parts as well. Be a lot of fun. Now we've got a last bit of feedback here, Tommy. You probably see it's quite a long one. I didn't know where to put this. This is from our friend and fellow co-host Matt Kona from the Ultimate Spider cast, where we do the Scarlet Spider at the end of every month. Matt Kona's also just recently been on the Isle of Ra. We had a nice little chat about his Desert Island books. Anyway, I didn't know where to put this. Have a listen to it yourself. It's another whole new review, so I'll just say that. Take it away, Matt.
Hey, Ray. Well, what's up, Into the Night? All the Khonshu crew. This is Matt Kona. I got a message from Ray asking if anybody was interested in reading Avengers number 33 and leaving some feedback. And I read Avengers 33. It's the one from the 60s, which Moon Knight is not in. I forgot that new comics are able to get as high as number 33. So I did read the new one. I'll just say I enjoyed it. I won't give you too much about it because I took diligent notes on the 1960s one. And even though it has nothing to do with Moon Knight, I figured I would leave feedback for it. So maybe this is tagged at the end of the podcast for after the credits. But it's called To Smash a Serpent. It mostly focuses on Goliath, Wasp, and Hawkeye trying to rescue Captain America, who has been taken over by the Serpent Society and is being used as a propaganda machine. There's a little blurb in the beginning which refers to it as this issue being one of the most talked about collector's items in the history of comicophilia. I checked eBay. It's $12.74 plus $4.99 shipping in very good condition. So I think they were a little bit off about the prophecy of it being one of the most collectible issues, but it was pretty good. It was an enjoyable read. If you're into old digital comics or you want to find that eBay seller and get it for under $20, you can. But it felt a little close to home. There was a couple of quotes especially that one of them said, American blood must be kept pure, foreigners must be banished. And that was coming from a serpent, but given the current political times in America, it felt a little bit eerie. Hawkeye is having some trouble being in Captain America's chair. He's worried about what's going on. Him and Goliath take a while to get onto the same page. The Serpent Society sends messages that self-destruct in the guise of snake canes that invite them to the public meeting of the Serpent Society, where Captain America is billed as a speaker. And you see things that are going on in Congress and the State Department. There is a vaguely tyrannical Asian ruler. They don't use the word Asian. This is the 60s. They use a different word that's a little not PC anymore. But this General Chen character says, how can you police the rest of the world when you can't even control the hate mongers in your own land? Damn, that's kind of a mic drop moment. So we get into some action. Hawkeye stakes out the area outside of the Serpents gathering. Goliath and Wasp say he is parking the car. Black Widow is up above them in an airplane, in the Avengers jet, not just an airplane. And she's figuring it out how they're going to rescue Captain America, but he's out there and he's brainwashed, spouting pro-Serpent Society propaganda. Goliath gets on stage and talks about how they're against American values, but the crowd is easily swayed, and because Captain America is saying it, they side with him against Goliath, which is also very topical because we have a nation of people who believe anything that they think should be right. Kind of scary again. Action continues in this artificial cloud device nearby the airplane that the Serpent Society is escaping in or literally pulling the puppet strings from. And then a bare-chested Captain America comes out and joins the fight. We revealed that the other Captain America was a fraud, a Serpent Society person, just in Captain America's outfit. Hawkeye makes some pretty funny references. He makes a Diners Club joke at one point. Diners Club being a kind of a budget credit card that I've never seen in real life, but I know that it exists. Black Widow arrives. They unmask the head of the serpents, and it is General Chen in a very Scooby-Doo type of ending. I would have gotten away with it if it wasn't for you meddling kids. And so that, it was kind of a quick little tie-up in that way. But the last words between Captain America and Goliath hit real hard again. They say, "Beware the man who sets you against your neighbor. For whoever the deadly poison of bigotry touches, the flame of freedom will burn a little dimmer." Wow. I don't know. I know you guys are recording in Australia, or Ray, at least you are, but I don't know. This 1960s comic book kind of hit me in the feels. But I did read the issue of Avengers 33 after I realized there was no Moon Knight in this issue, and I dug it. Moon Knight is a straight, cold-hearted, calculating sociopath. He's systematically taken out the Avengers, starting with Iron Fist, Doctor Strange, Ghost Rider, Thor. I dug it. I dug the art. I dug that it reveals all the different identities of Moon Knight. He gets an army of mummies at one point. I'm into it. I'm not reading the newest issues of comics a lot nowadays, but I'm going to see where this goes. So part 1 hooked me. I will be on board for part 2. But definitely go back, read the Avengers 33 from the 60s like I did by accident, but ended up enjoying it. So thanks for that, Ray. And sorry this is super long. But like I said, they have a lot more words. There's a lot more to process in the old 60s issues. So I had to go through it that way. All right, that's it from me. Matt Kona. See you guys soon. Check out the Ultimate Spider-Cast, Ben Reilly edition, where Ray and I are a part of it. All right, see you later. Good day, mates.
Thank you, Matt. Signing off with a hello. But no, as I loved Matt. I loved you checked up on the price of that issue. So Loonies, also you get a second review at no extra cost on this episode. There you go. Maybe something to check out in the 60s Avengers 33. Tommy, have you read this issue? Are you going to read this issue? It sounds like a cracker.
Not within my memory, but it's something to celebrate. And Matt, you sound like a fun guy. So maybe one day you and I can talk about that.
Absolutely. We'll get you two on to do an in-depth review. I mean, although Matt, you've covered it brilliantly, and look, if you can find things within comics that get you in the deep and meaningfuls, that's awesome. So no, great. Whoever wrote that, prophetic. So that pretty much wraps us all up. Anyway, Tommy, thank you so much. We've gone way over time, but I'm hoping that I haven't disturbed your morning, your day. Thank you so much for your time and for discussing this fun issue.
Yeah, it's great to be back, and I love the ITK community, and it's great to see Moon Knight in the comics, and so it's good to see you, Ray. It's really good to see you. Yeah,
good to catch up as well. Good to see you too. I'm glad your technology is working a lot better than mine. So it's been fun with this new way to see things. Really would like to exploit it more. So Looney's next phase is our big 150th episode. Look, to be honest, there's I don't know. I can't seem to, I guess, top the episode 100, so it's going to be a modest one. I'll see what I can do, but it is a bit of a milestone. 150, it's going to be fun. Maybe get a few loonies or hopefully some special guests on board. So check that out. That will be on next week. Just to mention as well, Patreon page, if you do check out, as Tommy mentioned, become a patroonie. You can see what we're doing. Tommy's put up that great, what do you call dot point? We've got an overhead projector. You can see the comics that we're talking about. Patreon.com/ITK Moon Knight. We're sponsored by Hello Headphones. Use the code ITK Moon Knight to get 10% off their online store, and we're sponsored by Dreamland Comics. So use code MOON and get a whopping 20% off any of your purchases. So big thanks to the guys over there. We're also affiliate member to Entertainment Earth. If you want to go grab your, I don't know if you want to pre-order or get another order of that Moon Knight Marvel Legends or anything like that, do it through our link, and that will help us as well. And that helps support the show. Finally, we're part of the Collective as well. Great podcast. Check out the Adelan Rising. It's an Inhumans podcast. The likes of Signal of Doom. Big shout out to Dave Finn, cracking it over there with 4.5, 5 hour shows. Dave, you are a menace. So big shout out to Dave Finn. And finally, Weird Science DC and Marvel podcast. They do consistent reviews of all comics coming out, and I think they're doing some flashbacks, so that's pretty cool. Finally, you can find us, contact us on the email itkmoonknight@gmail.com. We're also on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, Discord, Get Vocal. We've got a website on Libsyn and WordPress, and we're on Podchaser as well, so if you want to leave a review, that will be very much appreciated. A big thank you again, Tommy. All the best. I'm sure I'll be seeing you online. I'm sure we'll be chatting again. We should set up another round robin, revengeance episode as well. But no, a huge thank you.
Yeah, always happy, and go ITK.
Excellent. And with that, everyone, may Khonshu watch over the denizens of the night. Catch you later.
Moon Knight and affiliated characters, stories and events are properties of Marvel Characters Incorporated. Materials used and discussed within the podcast are intended for critique and review purposes only under the fair dealing concept of the current Copyright Act. The views, information or opinions expressed during the podcast are solely those of the individuals involved and do not necessarily represent those of the copyright owners.